Hello, everybody. Welcome to Golcano's open gym session on setting compelling goals. What's in it for you? Well, what I've learned is that there are three main reasons that people don't reach their goals. And one of them is that the goals they have just aren't inspiring enough. And since I'm sure you're curious, the other two are that they and so and those are things certainly that are met within different membership levels of Gold. I'd be happy to talk to you about at a different time. But today's focus is very much on the compelling goals piece. And so, and then just a couple of other things. One, to get the most out of your open gym membership, certainly the one thing that I would definitely do is make sure you're on at least one meeting a week. And I would really, it makes a big difference if you can do it live. If it doesn't fit with your schedule, then perhaps what I would suggest is tune into a session, set a weekly challenge goal for yourself, and commit to that goal with somebody else that you're close to that will hold you accountable the following week. Because otherwise I think it will, you'll get less out of it. So I think that's the biggest thing is tune into a class, set a specific commitment to a goal. And then the other thing I'd recommend is use this results tracker, which is a Word document that I can email to you. All you have to do is ask for it. And, hopefully within the next 6 weeks or so, I will also have a journal that I can provide, which will have this information, and so it'll be easier to carry around. But the results tracker will help you not just have focus for short and long-term goals, but also reflect on what you're learning from specific actions each week and what specific habits that you'll be taking away from that as a result. So, step one, in terms of setting inspiring goals, well, I think the first thing to do is just to be reminded about all the different possible areas there are in your life that you might want to consider setting goals for, so that you're not one-dimensional and only thinking about business. And whether it's relationships, which would be an obvious one, health is always high on many people's lists, or they wish it were. Often maybe it's a goal but not going anywhere. And finances, friends, fun. I mean, one of the ones that's a fun one, more than a fun one, I think one that really can get you inspired is what Mark Divine calls the 20x goal, which is the notion that you are capable of 20 times more than you think you are. And so what might that goal be? A 20x goal would be something really significantly different than what you're doing at the moment. It's multiplying your business by 5. It's maybe if it's a physical goal, perhaps if you exercise 2 or 3 times a week now, it would be exercising 6 times a week for the next 2 months. It's something significant. It's taking your family overseas for 2 months. It's learning a foreign language or learning a musical instrument. I mean, something completely different that would be a huge challenge. It's climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, something really significant. It might be raising a large amount of money for a charity, but that's something that would really get you inspired. That's the 20x goal, which would be an especially fun one to include in the mix. I think that's where it starts. And by the way, there is an agenda to today's meeting, which I'm happy to share with you. Again, just email me and I'm happy to send that to you. Step 2 is write down the top 3 goals you have for the year. And what I find is that most people don't have goals that are specific and measurable, that a stranger could walk into the room and know exactly whether you've reached that goal or not. And then once you've written those goals, and by the way, there will be other workshops on setting SMART goals. Once you've written down your goals, the next thing to do is ask yourself, or is to rate each one on a scale of 1 to 10. And that doesn't take long. I think you know almost immediately whether something's a 10 out of 10 goal or not. And generally speaking, it's very rare that people have 3 goals that are 10 out of 10. And so if they're not, then rewrite them. And ask yourself, well, what would be a 10? Now, this isn't always as simple as it sounds, because sometimes we have to confront the fact that maybe we have the wrong goal. Or maybe the goal, I mean, it's just never going to happen. But something can be very confronting in that regard. and for obligators, I suppose, to take a step back and relook at the list and say, well, what is an area of my life that would inspire me? So if it's the wrong goal, change it. I mean, no point in making this more complicated than it needs to be. If you would like some suggestions on, or some questions, some good questions to ask yourself, if you feel like you're losing your passion in a certain area, again, ask me. I'm happy to share those with you. Again, there will be future emails. So that's step two. Step two is make sure your goals are clearly exciting. In other words, yeah, sure, you really, ideally, it's better if your goal is something that you know you can achieve within a year. I think what matters most about a goal is that it inspires you, and that it doesn't, and then it's not perhaps necessarily so big that it puts you off. Now, I might send mixed messages on that topic. I think, and the reason being is because we're all different. Some people, if they set too big of a goal, it's daunting, it puts them off, and they give up. Or they, even worse, perhaps, well, not worse, but they pretend to keep going, but aren't really committed. And so I think for most people, it's best to set a goal that is realistically achievable and exciting at the same time. That keeps you going and pushing. And well, there's many pieces to this. You want to put a plan in place, and of course, we'll address that in future sessions as well. But for now, dream a little bit. And what you're really looking for here is, once you've got goals, again, most people's goals, even their 10 out of 10, well, even what we think are 10 out of 10 goals, sometimes they need a little bit more juice under them, or a lot more inspiration behind them. And so what I'm suggesting here is trying to think about a measure, a peak moment in that goal area, whether it's anything to do with love or health. A peak moment of love is going to be, like, if you're setting a relationship goal, that's the time to think about, when did you most feel in love? When did you most feel loved? And with health, the same thing. When did you feel most physically supreme and inconquerable and in fabulous shape? And that hopefully is an inspiring goal that you can revisit. If it's too far in the distant past, and since then your body's had some challenges, then you'll have to adapt the goal so that it's still inspiring but has some realistic accommodations. But again, it's inspiring, so it enables you to do things that you would love to do and that you perhaps at the moment would struggle to do. With again, all of these areas, a peak moment of financial success, a peak moment of success in general, a peak moment of enthusiasm, passion, all of these things, and these are all listed in the agenda. When did you feel most centered, most at peace with yourself, comfortable in your own skin, confident? When did you feel most confident? That's a great question. At what point in your life did you feel most confident? It's often a wonderful thing to write about and make note of the things that were going on in your life that made you feel that way. It's odd that I remember this story from so long ago, when I've had this conversation before, since then, but I still remember a client of mine who was really having a rough time, was relatively new to his business, and it really helped him to think about this question and realize certain things that would help him. So he realized that music was important to him, and so he started to, drag out, find some of the songs he really liked and listen to them more, because they reminded him of great times and they got him excited again. He started personalizing his office, and he realized he needed pictures surrounding him of loved ones, and that it's just something he'd been too lazy to do, but that lifted him. Sometimes it's these little things that can bring us to, that can help, and other seemingly little things might be just better questions to ask ourselves on a daily basis about what we appreciate or what we're grateful for. Sometimes those can help. Personally, I don't find those questions quite as helpful, but I do find other questions really helpful, such as, was I on or off today? what were the top 3 things I got from my day and why. So there are other questions that can be helpful, and those, by the way, will be included in the Volcano Journal when it's ready and listed out. Plus, there'll be a separate session on perhaps using and talking about those more and applying those more to your own life as well. So that's really what step 3 is about: is looking at the goal that you've got and the goal area, and take your business goal and ask yourself, when did I feel most successful in my business, and reflect on that time, because that might be your goal. For me, I know I've had a goal. In fact, I've got a goal this year that's really around having the same enthusiasm level that I had at my most enthusiastic, because it's such a crucial character trait that we all need in our businesses. So why am I talking about this? Because it might shift the focus or the wording of your goal. It may not change what you measure, but I think it's crucial. It's crucial to feel excited about what you are doing, and that means tapping into your strongest memories and successes, and you can apply that to different areas of your life. So when did you feel most alive in your relationships with your children? Again, whatever that might be, that's where to start to reconnect. And that's, as I said, so that's step 3, is sort of tap into really a peak emotional moment. And as you reflect on that, step 4, I say tune into a magic moment. So using the list above, when did you feel most loved or in love? Was the one day when you remember that feeling of bliss? Use that location or event as the wording for your goal. You know exactly how you felt, and that might be the measure. I spoke last week to somebody talking about a holiday home that he wanted for his family. And we started to talk about the wording of the goal, because it wasn't just about the time with his family that was the goal. It was also this feeling. There were many feelings associated to having this holiday home that included feelings of success, but also included feelings of peace of mind, of relaxation, of fun, of connectedness, and all kinds of different things. And that's where sometimes that is what inspires you. And that's why this is a really valuable topic, is that I believe the best goals are juicy goals, are goals that are, well, I'll get to this in just a minute, I suppose, really. But again, so step 4, getting ahead of myself, step 4 is essentially, what was that magic moment in that particular area that would be most inspiring to revisit? Step 5, what's the powerful why or purpose behind it? And this is part of the 9-step goal setting process that we will embark on in different sessions. And certainly, as if you were in a weekly group, that's something that you for sure are in the process of doing or have done recently. And I think the only thing to do here that makes sense is to really make a list of, I would say, try to find 20 reasons. Why is this goal really important? And it's not about getting to 20, although it is, I think, about getting well past 10, because getting to 10 is relatively easy and it doesn't necessarily require much thought. And that's not in your best interests, because I think the more you can dig deeply into your emotions, your feelings, your desire, the more likely you are to come up with a more compelling reason that is the real reason why it's so important to you. And I think rarely do people take the time to do that. And that too is wrapped up into this notion of not having goals that are really compelling, is simply not having thought through why is this important to me? What's really going on here? And that requires also a level of, I think, being really honest with yourself about your motives. And that's not easy too. I mean, it's easier to just be a little bit shallow about this. and that won't help you, I don't think. Now, it is quite possible that some people do remarkable things in life, and maybe they're not completely aware about all the reasons why they want to do it. And I think, in a way, that's unfortunate because um, this isn't about being an A-type. This isn't about being a workaholic. This is about having the drive to pursue what you really, really want, and that requires thought. So, 20 reasons why a specific goal area is really important to you. And the purpose ultimately there, as I said, is to think more deeply and to really, I try to identify what's the real driver here. And there may be several, but I'm still inclined to think that there's one that's more prominent than the others. Now, step 6, this is really, I think, the fun part, is you want wording in a goal, I believe. And my favorite expression, I learned this many, many years ago when I was trained as a coach in 2002. I learned this from an Australian who led the course called David Rock, who said that your goals should sing to you. And I just like that word. And he even once talked about how the goals should sort of sit in the palm of your hand. In other words, it should be short and sweet and be somewhat magical. And I agree. I totally agree. And very rarely do people get this far in goal setting. So that's where I think tying what you want into some final piece or into some place. And so I have to give personal examples here. When I was at my most enthusiastic in business, I mean, I remember the week, really. I mean, it was a period of time, but I remember certain highlights. There were several, I admit. There were definitely several. But one of them was a week I spent in the UK, and an event I did in the financial district in London in particular. And it had many meanings to me. It wasn't just the fact that I landed this piece of business and got to speak. It was many other things. It was really the first time, and I'd been in business 8 years by then. It was the first time I'd ever really felt recognized or had a chance to do something of any significance in my own country. And that was I was very proud of that. And so it meant a lot. And then there were other things going on in my life at the time, several things that were emotionally powerful. And maybe that's why that week means even more than other weeks that year that were equally fabulous. And so maybe I should share. So the other two big things that were, well, there were several, but the two big things that were going on is I was in a serious relationship at the time, and this was the first time that this woman was going to meet my family. And so there was the excitement of her being with me in London at the same time. We were put up in a couple of very nice hotels, and also my sister, I'd spent a week staying with her and sort of taking care of the things going on. So it was just a really impactful time. And so that's why that wording means the most to me. So when I say London 2010, it has all this emotional power to it. And that's what I wanted back this year, and to feel as equally enthused. So I hope that's just giving you a sense of what I'm talking about. With a relationship, I think it's relatively easy with many relationship goals, in that if you picked a time when you felt most loved, even if it wasn't with that particular person, there have to be things from those feelings that you might want to use and replicate again for wording for a future goal. So again, the examples I give: Four Seasons, Maui, Thanksgiving, Grand Canyon, which was another one for me, which was a health goal, really. A time several years ago when I hiked to the bottom of the Grand Canyon around a couple of days around Thanksgiving, and I just was in supreme physical shape at the time, and it was great. And so that's the kind of thing that might be races you've run in or other things like that. That's what you're shooting for. So ideally, just a few words that really inspire you around goals. And I think that's where I would then say to you, now it's time to start working on rewriting yours. If I were you, because I think that while it's okay. So, for example, let me take one mini step back. So, as I said, even if the juicy wording is harder to measure, then perhaps the measurables are how much you achieve in your business that enable you to make that trip, to afford that holiday, whatever it might be, or build that house. You get the idea. And so so it's okay not to. You're not cheating. You're simply giving yourself the inspiration, and you know exactly what it means. Um, Other things that might be relevant, a confidence goal. Well, no one's confident 100% of the time. So perhaps your goal is to be confident 80% of the time, or to feel as confident as I did at such and such a time. So that's where you can measure areas of your life that might seem less easy to measure. To believe in myself as much as I did when I was such and such an age is something that you know what that looks like. So that might be another way to do it. If you're confident at the moment, so say a 4 out of 10, then your goal maybe is to have it at a 7 out of 10 within 3 months and a 9 out of 10 within 6. But again, that's in theory. I know in theory that's still very subjective. You can put measures and things in place that help you determine whether you are on track or not. And certainly, if you'd like to talk more about these things, certainly you can certainly jump in on other sessions and work around that, or the weekly groups where you have opportunities to talk about these things within a group. There's also the personal trainer level membership option, where you can work one-on-one with me, where again that could be discussed at greater length. And that information is on the 4th page of the agenda. It's also soon to be up on the new website, and it's information I can easily send to you if you would like more information on that. Otherwise, what I would suggest to you as a Golcano member is make sure you have a specific exciting goal set for yourself for this week. And if you would like to, and that way, when you join another meeting, either this week or next week, you can report back on there at the beginning. If that's part of the agenda, that would be a good idea. And certainly to use this results tracker that I talked about earlier as well as a way to sort of measure your specific progress moving forward. Other things to know are in future with meetings, if you'd like the agenda in advance, please give me 60 minutes notice. And future topics are also listed on the agenda for the upcoming week to month. Upcoming right now would be the May the 19th. That's tomorrow at, let's see, what times are these? Eastern time, 10 o'clock Eastern. More sales is the theme, 3 strategies to identify prospects. And also on the 19th at 11 Eastern AM, what's your one thing? And then there are 2 more topics on Friday, and then 4 more next week as well. So look forward to seeing you on future meetings, and good luck reaching your goals.